OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles, McLennan. We have ourselves a sports equinox. Man, people love buzzing about the old sports equinox, don't they?
You know what I say about the sports equinox? All glory be to God.
You're a fan? You're going to be watching all four sports tonight. That's your plan.
No, but the only thing I have to say about positive stuff is all glory be to God.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That guy, what was wrong with that guy?
That was insane. Like, I played with the Bistard in Hartford. Adam Burt never swore. Called people friggin' Bistards. He would never talk like that in an interview, the Bistard.
Right.
I don't know what Jameis Winston, why he had to do that. Like, the Pope. He was the Pope yesterday. Yeah. How was the defense? Like, how'd you feel before the game? All glory be to God. I was like, what the hell? Amanda Bionis was like, what are you talking about, dude?
What a win. What a win by Jameis, though, right? I guess you're right, man. That was a really kind of strange approach considering the scenario. He's the man in Cleveland now. He picks up a win. Jameis, he's got some weird things going in his past, too, man. Like the way he eats the W. You've seen that when that's his big thing, right?
Eating the W is like a jock-type cool thing to do.
Right.
Saying all glory be to God talking about football, I told you, the Bistard was basically a priest, and he never talked like that after a game.
Well,
I love that.
Jameis did last night, man, and Jameis is feeling good. And, man, there's some people in the sports world who are feeling great today, and there's some people on the complete other end of the spectrum.
Dude, that's every Monday, man. I feel like the swing.
Right,
I feel like the emotional swing of negative and positive. It's worse than it's ever been in pro sports. Like the Jets, dude. Jesus.
People are lining up to kick Aaron Rodgers in the nuts. They can't wait. Was it Shannon Sharp who took a shot at him today saying he deserves it? He's an arrogant, it was unbelievable. People just can't wait to line up and go right at Rodgers.
To the Patriots.
That is such a bad loss. And you want to talk about the extreme. Just talk about the name Jets. The New York Jets are 2-6. The Winnipeg Jets are 8-0. There's the two ends of the spectrum right there. If you're in New York, you want nothing to do with the Jets. I've been just absolutely taking in a full day's worth of material, like you said, Noodles, on the way people are reacting to the Jets and Jet fans. And I don't blame them. They absolutely despise this team. And they hate on Rodgers. They hate the owner. They hate this new coach. They hate everything about it. And then you go to Winnipeg, where the Leafs are tonight, and they can't get enough. You can't get enough about the Winnipeg Jets because they don't lose. And they look great right now. The Leafs are in one tonight. And then you got the Yankees. You got the Dodgers. You've got safeties for the Bears. You got Aaron Judge, who was struck out 6 times in 2 games. 6 times in 2 games. And then you look at Freddie Freeman. All that guy does is hit home runs. Like Freddie Freeman and Aaron Judge. We could go on for 3 hours. The polar opposites in sports right now. Who's in the middle, though? Give me a team or a player or a coach.
It's an obvious one. The middle ground right now, it's crazy to think of all teams in all markets as middle ground. It's the Toronto Maple Leafs.
You think the Leafs are right in the middle?
I was going to go a step further. How about the Atlantic Division?
Yes, outside of the champs who are not technically 500 right now, but you're right. Everyone else is like 4-4-1 or 4-4.
Yeah, they're like 8 or 9 points and just kind of meddling. So you could lump in. Oh, you want to talk about the Leafs, but everybody is just lumped together. It's the Atlantic Division that is kind of right there in the middle.
Right in the middle. The Atlantic Division is the axis of the earth right now. And everything else is spiraling one way or the other. You're either positive or negative, and then you meet in the middle at the Atlantic Division. Again, not named the Florida Panthers, who are 6-3-1. Tampa's 5-3. They got a big one. Stamkos is back home tonight. There is so much going on in sports today. I wish we could pause it and spread it out over the course of the week.
Dude, did we even mention those donkeys in Dallas?
No, they lost, and that's just a formality. That's a formality.
Glory be to God. Glory be to God in Dallas.
I'll tell you what, Dak's not saying that. Dak is not saying that. Jerry Jones is not saying that.
That's the question I have. If Jameis was Dak, would he be saying, all glory be to God?
He probably would to get out of everything. You know what I mean? Like, just basically deflect. Don't talk to me about the fact that I'm the highest paid player in the history of the NFL, that I'm throwing picks like it's candies being handed out for Halloween. The run game is pathetic in Dallas. The defense isn't any good. They got a lot of injuries down there.
Dude,
but that
that's what you
Cowboys
get,
team
Hayes.
stinks, man.
That's what you get. There's two donkey owners there that think it's Nintendo and they get to pick pieces.
That's right.
And they're both so hands-on. Our boy Woody Johnston in New York and Jerry Jones, they're just pathetic. Like they think because they've got so much money and it's a control freak thing that they can organize a football team in the big leagues. They're insane.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that both are a disaster. And I've been saying to you guys for years, why don't they have a right-hand man that might be their son to pull them aside and say, you've got to cut out the crap because this is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. The Cowboys are an embarrassment.
That would be ideal, but what makes the son qualified to know who you're supposed to sign?
I'm talking as if the son had half a brain and said,
well,
you're not doing it and I'm not doing it.
Right.
We'll bring in somebody, and it might be Bill Belichick, but we're going to be owners and let someone else do the football stuff.
That is smart, and that should happen.
Thank you very much.
It won't happen.
The son can just be anybody. His best friend could be his conscience and just be like, dude, it's not working. You know how it is. If one of the three of us was going down a pathway, the other two would kind of arm around and hey, like a comment here or there. Like, as friends, you just go, hey, let's head this pathway. Like, to me, somebody in Jerry Jones's orbit has to pull him aside and go, what's going on here? What's the end game? Like, or at least be his conscience and say, you want to take a look at this. But you're right. These people, they have so much money. They have such a big egos that they just believe that what they say or what they do is right and everybody else is wrong. Mm-hmm. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah, listen, that's the way it's operated for a long time. Steinbrenner used to be that, George Steinbrenner back in the day. Yet it led to some success with the Yankees. Now the Steinbrenner's still on the team, and they're in the hole 2-0 going into the game tonight. And that's probably a poll we can throw up. Coming out of the weekend, who had a more difficult time looking at their teammates? Would it be obviously the safety for the Bears, who has immediately become famous because nobody knew who Tyrique Stevenson was prior to last night, unless you're a Bears fan. No, but now everyone knows, and he is the definition of a meme live in action, taunting Commander fans, taunting their sideline, and then he tips the ball to Noah Brown to lose the game.
Like, that's the insult to injury. It didn't have to just be it had to be him, the guy that was sleeping on the play. Look at this guy. He's yelling at the fans, and the play is going on.
I love this guy.
He's the guy that tips it, man. Come on.
Honestly, if they presented you with a script like that in Hollywood, you'd say that's not believable enough. That's a stupid idea. Yeah. Throw it out. That can't happen.
And the Bears had this pump-up video before the season about how they're all serious this year and it's going to be a different ball game and blah, blah, blah.
God.
That I don't even know how you recover from that because it's awfully difficult to ever think that he's not going to do something stupid again. But that's a tough one to get out of. Like, to get trust again, man.
That's tough, man.
That's an all-time jackass move. But you know what made me think of it? Do you remember? I can't remember who it was. There was somebody in a foot race, like a marathon or something, that led up and just was trying to strut it in, walk it in, and somebody blew right by them, and they ended up.
It was recently. It was a couple months ago. It was a foot
it was a
walk race,
power walker or
power
something.
Walker, women's racing, I think too, and she was cruising in with her arms up, and someone blew past her, and she finished fourth and off the podium.
There is going to be, I guarantee you, Jay or SC is going to have like a top 10 or top 5 jackass moment. Like the guy last night for sure, and then the sprinter Walker.
Here's the crazy thing is Orlovsky pointed out, I saw him on ESPN today, saying that Stevenson was doing the same thing the play before. He basically was on the field for multiple plays in a row, taunting the sidelines, and then we know what happened. And then on Friday night, Nestor Cortez goes in. Now, he's trying to get Ohtani out and Freeman out. He hadn't pitched in over 30 days. He threw 2 pitches, and Freddie Freeman's home run, I think, landed about an hour ago. And it's a walk-off grand slam.
He destroyed that ball.
He crushed that ball. And those were 2 fastballs, middle in. Ohtani should have hit his back to, Anaheim.
Dude, that's on Boone, though.
It is on Boone. It is on Boone for putting him in that situation.
He said, I thought our best position was Cortez there. You just mentioned it. He hadn't pitched in 30 days. How on earth is that guy your best option?
It's crazy. And that's why I feel for Cortez, but I also I can put myself in his shoes walking into that clubhouse and all your teammates like, man, we just needed one more out. Like we win game 1, we get a split, we're going back. Now they go back to Yankee Stadium tonight. Who knows what's coming out of this? The Dodgers have so much pendulum swinging in their direction. Sounds like Ohtani will play, but he got banged up stealing a base the other night, which I appreciate the aggressiveness, but it's 4-1 late in that game. Like, you're almost putting him in a position if you're, Dave Roberts to not get it. You can't bubble wrap guys, but there's 2 outs in the 7th. It's 4-1, and he's stealing a base, and he gets banged up. That's what really stings.
He subluxed his shoulder, right? Is that what happened?
That's what they announced afterwards. It kind of did the pop out, pop in. But sounds like he's playing, and he'll be a part of the lineup tonight. So we'll get to that with Trevor May later this afternoon. So, we have a sports equinox, including the Nuggets in town. Nuggets are playing the Raptors tonight. You get the Monday Nighter. You get the Steelers against the Giants. Owen Wilson will have that pick. Luke coming up in about an hour.
Pretty quiet from you guys yesterday until the
You guys are so pathetic.
No,
Noodles, it's so pathetic the way these guys opeate.
You tell Al's brother if he sends one more regular season Sunday banner pick, I'll drive to his house and DDT him on his living room floor.
Al's brother, he put some work into the lab today because it was outstanding, the picture that he put together. Because these guys lost on Thursday night, as you know, Noodles. So we're 2-2 on the week. Like 2-2 is not anything impressive one way or the other. They had an extra pick than us, so they went – or no, we got the Bengals-Eagles game wrong. They got the layup of the year, Bills in Seattle, which everyone knew was – like Doogie did everything he could to jam us. And then we picked the Niners last night. So they're 2-1 on a Sunday, week 8. And these guys want Doogie to put together some video, like call people. Like they wanted former teammates like Russell Wilson to send a video in and Tux and Caber and the boys to be like, hey, congrats, guys. That was awesome.
Doogie Ambrosi.
Really pathetic behavior.
Doogie Ambrosi is a man of integrity. And that Bills-Seahawks game, that wasn't labeled as the layup of the
Seahawks are frauds, man. They're not any good.
They suck. And they suck when Luke Wilson, my parts, even just gave it to them last night.
Absolutely.
But that was not. And Doogie Ambrosi, he's better than that.
Doogie is a man of integrity. I will grant you that. I will not question that.
He's the next commissioner of the Canadian Football League.
I want his hat in the rink because I think Doogie would really spice some things up. And I just saw Randy Ambrosi last week, and I was not aware that he was on the verge of retirement. But that news came out over the weekend that Randy, I think, will get through next season and then turn over the reins. And, he's been at the helm for quite some time. And obviously he was a player himself, so he loves the CFL, loves football. And we'll see what happens with the Canadian Football League. See, the Elks won on a punt over the weekend. A punt to beat the Argos, which I love. That's the way to end your regular season. But now we're into the playoffs in the CFL, so we'll get to that as the week goes on.
I feel bad because I felt like last night I opened a can of worms because I was just checking in. I was in Denver, so actually I could see the stadium outside my hotel window because the Broncos were playing just down the road.
Right.
And it was an afternoon game, so we had a bunch of Bronco fans as you head over to the rink and stuff. But I wasn't sure where everything was. And then Luke chimed in, we're ahead. And then Hayes, you corrected him, and Doogie had tweeted something out, and there was some language. I feel like Al's brother might be nicknamed, you might change his nickname to the friggin' Bister or whatever. Like
he's right in their kitchen, Noodles. Like this is Brad Marchand and the Maple Leafs, basically. This is he's Marchand. Al's brother's Marchand, and these guys are the Sedin twins. And he's right in their kitchen, and he's just punching them in the head, and they have no response. And, speaking of which, that Saturday night, very familiar. And we didn't do a lot of building it up on Friday that they were back at the scene of the crime because that's been the crime scene for a decade.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they've lost in 13 and 19 and 20. Like they lose there all the time in Game 7. But the Leafs go into Boston on Saturday night, and I don't know if I was expecting them to have some big response. Not really because of what happened in Game 7, more so because they had the way they had played the preceding 2 games.
Right.
And I didn't think they played poorly, but I thought Boston was the better team collectively. And what comes out of it is Boston's best players, they end up always finding a way to get the upper hand on the Leafs' best players. Like when you break it down. And Boston has beaten the Leafs, I believe, 9 straight times in the regular season? 8 or 9 straight times in the regular season. We know what happened in the playoffs. And it's a real hurdle that the Leafs have got to get over. And, you mentioned a moment ago that the Leafs are right in the middle of things, and the record would indicate that, but they've lost 3 games in a row.
Yeah,
and now they're in the Devil's Den tonight, man. They're in Winnipeg tonight, and that Jets team is humming right now, so you better be ready to play.
I said to you guys on the group text, I just felt like that game they played on Saturday night, by no means was it awful, but to some degree it was like their blueprint for losing against the Bruins, where Auston Matthews scored a big goal, and it was kind of just enough to keep the flies off. Matthew Nyes had a big goal, so you're like, he steps up and can play in this game. Mitch Marner had the incredible assist, 2 of them, and that was just enough to keep the flies off for people to say, oh, he can play well in this game. It's not his fault. But at the end of the day, what it amounts to is not good enough to win the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, it seems like the 7-game series, they take it to Game 7, and it was just not good enough to get over the hump. It's like there wasn't enough of them that played their game. And I don't think Boston had their best game either, but it was just a little bit better than Toronto's. Like, Pasternak and their best players, it's like, I don't think they were dazzling where there was like, oh, my God, these guys are dominating the play. But it just seemed like that was the blueprint of kind of just enough. Wasn't awful, but it was just enough to lose in overtime where you're like, nah, we tried, and it just got to get a little bit better. And that's what they seem to say every playoff series. And I'm not trying to go big picture and say that's what they're always going to do, but it almost seems like that was a predictable outcome for them in that building.
It did feel, I don't know how you guys felt watching it, it did feel like it was tight checking. It felt like a playoff game, like as far as the space available on the ice. And I thought Boston just kind of did their thing. Keep in mind, Boston a day before had a closed-door team meeting. They were pissed. You knew that they were going to show up. I thought the Leafs were going to show up too. I took a couple things out of it. I didn't love Tavares' game. I think Willie's been Willie inserts himself, but he's made a couple errors that are really noticeable. So those 2 can be different, right? Like those 2 should and could be better. But I thought it had a playoff feel. I don't know how you guys felt. But it was close check.
I guess so. And again, the way it ended is the way that they've ended a lot in the regular season. Like, that was a carbon copy of what happened in Toronto last year. I think it was in November, where Matthews scored late to tie it, go to OT, and Marchand scored in overtime. I want to say on a 2-on-1 or a 2-on-0 against Pasternak.
It was.
It was like the exact same thing that happened last year, only this time it was in the Garden in Boston. And I thought the Willie blowing a wheel thing, that was him overthinking the mistake he had made the game before. Because if you look at it, what trips him up is he was going to turn back up at the blue line. And he stopped himself and goes, I can't do that. His legs were already going. Like, if you watch this, he's like, I can't. Oh, Berube will kill me. And he blows the wheel, and it ends up going the other way. And I found that as a perfect example of what we were talking about last week, them thinking, them trying to figure out what Berube wants, how they're supposed to play, quote unquote, because we know what he did. I think it was the previous game against St. Louis, where he lost the puck at the blue line. It went the other way, and it went in the net. I think Neighbors end up scoring. That, to me, is exactly what happened. You guys can speak on it. Oh, you can speak on it. I'm sure you've been in that spot. But when your legs are going somewhere and then mentally you try to stop, that's what it looked like to me, that he was thinking, I'm gonna go back towards my blue line. I'm going to try to dangle. And then Berube's face jumped into his head, and he said, I can't do that, and he blew a wheel.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, it's in his net anyway. Even though he was trying to do the right thing.
The other thing that's concerning is that those cast of characters for the Bruins took over the hockey game in, a 3-minute span there. It's like those guys can't get on the board like that. Who was it? Brazeau and dominate. And those were Leafs.
Kastelik
and Brazeau, yep.
Those guys can't dominate some of your better players, and all of a sudden you end up on the score sheet and tilt the ice like that and tilt the scoreboard. It's like, what the hell's going on here? The fourth line goes out there and does that? Just can't happen. It was just goofiness.
Or your fourth line can do that. That's the difference, right? Like you expect guys farther down in the lineup in big games to maybe chip in and be difference makers.
Yeah, but chip in with 2 goals like that, Noodles. Like
Yeah,
it was just like you're looking at the Leaf players on the ice, and you're like, "Come on, guys! You're supposed to have it in the other end, and you're supposed to be dominating these guys. Instead, you just got your ass handed to you, and 2 goals you're digging out of the net."
What'd you make of the OT play? Like Matthews.
Dude, you can't sugarcoat that. That's a terrible giveaway.
No, there's no question about that.
Yeah, you got to eat the puck. I don't care. Go behind the net. You can't just toss it up there. I don't know if did somebody like bail on the play? Was someone there?
Marner was going. It looked like Marner was going for a change.
They were dog tired.
Yeah,
too.
they were going for a
change,
shift,
right?
And Marchand scares them. Let's call it what it is too. I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due. I know Leaf fans hate to hear that. If that's I don't know if that's Charlie Coyle. I don't think Matthews freaks. I think the fact that Marchand's on his heels, he's like, this guy's going to strip me of the puck. I got to get rid of it because he had the opportunity to get behind the net and use the net as a shield. And maybe that speaks to what you're saying, Noodles, end of the shift, and he was running out of gas, and he didn't think he could get out of them. But Marchand has a freaky way of winning battles on you and accidentally tripping you or pushing you off pucks. And I think that's what happened, too, is Matthews looked at Marchand and said, I can't beat this guy right now, and he bailed.
I'll be honest, though. I don't know if you guys – like, I had the ISO cam on Marchand. I didn't think he had a particularly good night. I think he finished strong, obviously – but he could have iced it with the empty net, and it bobbled on him.
Yep.
Like, to me, he missed a couple chances. I thought he kind of looked his age. Like for me, Marchand's got bite. He's got the quick darting in his skating. I didn't think he looked particularly sharp. I really didn't. He was a guy that I circled on Boston going, you know what? I didn't like his game, but then he just found a way, stuck with it, right?
I think that's been the case for him all year, and him coming off all those surgeries, he's older. I get the impression that's a concern in Boston. Like, we'll see where he's at 2-3 months from now, but I think he has struggled early on. Yet, Boston's in a position where they're 500, like the Leafs, like Ottawa, like now Buffalo's battled back into it, and
they've won 3 in a row.
Yeah, and Detroit's picking up points. They got a point in overtime last night. Montreal's 4-4-1.
Are you willing to remove anyone from your list?
No, I'm not.
That's right.
Dude,
No,
you're
not.
gutless.
No, I'm not.
There's some teams that have turned it around. Take Buffalo off.
Gutless would be doing that. Gutless would be a week later saying, oops, got it wrong. I'm bailing. Absolutely not. I'm not taking anyone out of that 10 to win the Stanley Cup. Listen, Buffalo is a team.
One time this year, you got to take a team off.
I'm not doing it a week into this process. And you reminded me I got to add 2 teams today. Doogie, remind me later, because 2 more teams are going into the hopper here. I'm putting 2 in, and I have a couple circled that I am really leaning towards.
Ooh.
But listen, man, there's been surprises in the league. There's been some teams that are off to good starts, and yet I think over the course of time we're going to see the cream rise to the top here. Because now Colorado's won 5 in a row. Nashville's won 3 in a row. Edmonton battled back. They win in overtime. The Oilers are going to figure it out. They've won a couple games in a row. Like, it's slow. Carolina had a bit of a slow start. They're winning again. They're in Vancouver tonight. So, it's all going to shake out the way I think most people thought it would shake out. But I'll add 2 more into the cannot win a Stanley Cup list. So 2 more teams will not be happy with me later this afternoon. But we'll come back and start teeing up, again, the night of action, including the Leafs in Winnipeg. And some news today on Jake McCabe and him sticking around in his contract and what we think of that. We'll get into that and more still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Leafs in Winnipeg tonight. There are some lineup changes. Nick Robertson coming out, healthy scratch. That didn't take long.
That's a turnaround right there. Like everyone was blowing smoke. 25 goal score, automatic, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. No power play time. Hasn't found a way to get it done. There's been given an opportunity. You can't. Obviously, some more power play time would have been beneficial, Brian, but it's just doesn't get it done at the NHL level. There's no other way around that.
Yeah, exactly. At some point, you have to call it as you see it, and a great preseason is just that. It's a preseason. It's completely irrelevant. And he has 1 goal. It was a goal late in the game. Was it Columbus or St. Louis he scored against? I can't remember. Where game was over. And, good for him. Scores, gets on the game sheet, but that's been it. And dangerous at times. Berube's tried to supported him publicly, said I like what he's seen. Yeah. He's decided I'm going a different direction, and I'm not surprised because of who they're playing tonight. Winnipeg in Winnipeg, you got to be prepared for the best of the best, the way the Jets are playing.
And sometimes a player ultimately becomes a tweener. Like, guys, we've seen it a bunch of times.
Yeah.
A guy will lead the American Hockey League in scoring, like dazzling numbers. Easily the best player in the American Hockey League, but just can't find a way to point score in the NHL. It's a weird phenomena being a tweener. How one league you're so dominant, you get to the next and you're not.
I watched it last night, this week. The Ottawa Senators, their fourth-line center right now is Adam Gaudette. Adam Gaudette scored 44 goals in the AHL last year.
Glory be to God.
Now he got, glory be. But he got 2 in Vegas and looks pretty decent. But he knows that he's playing 8 to 10 minutes a night in a checking role. And he's not getting – he did get a little bit of power play time, but he's not getting much. Like, his role is different. He's not, the man like he was in the AHL. Same thing. Nick Robertson has to carve something out. And what it is, Craig Berube's trying to win one game tonight. That's what he's trying to do. And he's putting together the roster he believes is going to do that. And I think having Reeves in there, some size on the road, Winnipeg's a team that's got some physicality on the back end. That's probably where he's headed. Now, Holmberg going in, you guys know.
He hasn't been great. No, he hasn't been great.
I just think he's a player. He's an NHL player. I think there's, when you look at their bottom 6, who has to jump? Domi technically is on their bottom 6. That's the only guy that jumps out for me. Outside of that, there's a bunch of players there.
Yeah.
And somebody's got to be better.
It didn't take long for that to happen. Again, breaking camp, it was they have so much depth, so many options. Now Yarncroke's out, and he's a legit player who can contribute if he stays healthy. Connor Dewar, I think, is more of a depth player. I'm not sure if he plays every night. But it does sound like they're going to move Domi down to the third line. Nylander's going to play on the second line with Tavares. So, John's going to have to step up. And they're changing their power play units. In the skate today, they have Riley with Marner, Matthews, Pacioretty, and Nyes. Yeah, and then they have Ekman Larson with Nylander, Domi, McMahon, and Tavares. So Nylander and Tavares, and I guess Ekman Larson, are moving to the second power play unit. So they're trying to mix it up. Pacioretty, Nyes, big bodies, guys that I'm sure they're going to use down low. And I'm sure they're going to try to set it up. Basically, Marner, Matthews, and I guess we'll see if it makes a difference because that power play was anemic again over the weekend. They're 0 for the last 10.
I give it half a period, Brian, before they switch it again.
They probably will go right back to what it was before. They showed a shot of Mark Savard right before that first power play in the first period the other night, and his arms were crossed, and he looked so bent out of shape before they even dropped the puck. And, because he's been brought in to try to figure this out. And you've got great talent here. You have to mold it properly, but clearly it's on the players who are they say it after every game. We're looking for the perfect this. We're looking for the perfect that. And then you see still pictures of guys with wide open nets, and they're passing it off. Yeah, and they can't do it. They can't overcome whatever stigma they're dealing with when it comes to that power play because it did not break loose the other night, and we'll see if it can tonight.
I will say this, and I think you just got to be patient. Okay, so I'm looking at it right now. The Edmonton Oilers power play is 27th in the National Hockey League. That's not going to be there for the rest of the year. The Toronto Maple Leafs is 29th. I believe there's enough talent. There's enough feel there. It's about somebody breaking through and getting some confidence and playing well and running their routes and executing them. I've watched Edmonton play. I've watched Toronto play every game. You're right. Marner had a wide open net the other day. He tried to go back through the seam because it's the extra pass. You're going to pass it into the net. Sometimes you got to dumb it down. And I just look at it. I would argue that a month from now, that power play is going to be creeping up into where it probably should be. It's a top 10 power play, top 5 power play in the league. Same thing with the Edmonton Oilers. They both uncharacteristically have been awful, and the players on them have to be better. That's the bottom line.
It's about isolating and find Joe from the Bridge. If you have that Kyle Connor Winnipeg power play goal, go ahead and roll that. And it's just as simple as isolating and finding the open man. Moving the puck around, getting the penalty killers focused on different areas of the ice, and somebody's got to be open. They have not been able to do that. Yeah. Simply establishing, moving the puck around. I played with one of the best power play guys in the world to ever play on the power play, Ron Francis. Sometimes he would always say, set up in a box and one and move the puck around and literally move it around the perimeter to let's see what the penalty killers are going to throw at us. And once we zipped it around once, then we'll establish what's going to happen. If they're pressuring, we've got to move it quickly and we might find the open man. It's just they haven't even been able to set up shop and zip the puck around. One guy gets it, he's got to skate with it up, skate with it back. It's just like that Pasternak goal. They passed it down low. Brad Marchand attacks the net. The guy in front of the net goes to Marchand. Guess who's open? David Pasternak. They haven't been able to isolate and find the open man. It's very simple. I don't know why guys that talented have been unwilling or unable to do that, but they haven't been able to do it. They got two guys that shoot the puck better than anyone in the world, Auston Matthews and William Nylander. Yeah. You would think that those two guys posted up would scare the living daylights out of people into running all over the place and opening up something down low in front of the net, but they just haven't been, as I mentioned, willing or able to get that set up. Crazy stuff.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's frustrating, man. And again, we'll see what comes of it tonight. Jake McCabe signed a 5-year extension today at $4.5 million per season. So they are locked in. Like Riley's locked in long term, Tanev's locked in long term, Ekman Larson and McCabe. There's your top four. Like, are they just committed to those four in your top four for the next 4 years? Is there anyone else that can break through? I mean, there's no one that I see currently on this team. Liljegren's not even playing.
Well, so there's nobody in the system. I don't think
Benoit's not there. Exactly. Right. I don't see anybody in the system. But they're paying all these guys appropriately. I think it's a fair deal. I think it's a good deal for both sides. You know, McCabe's 31. He's a good player. He's a second-pair defenseman, plays aggressively, physical, seems like a guy they really like. I've liked him since he arrived. I think it's a fair deal. I think it's an appropriate deal. But this is your top four. Like this, and these guys, they're in their 30s. So you probably have two, this year and next where you feel really good about them. Yep. And then the door's going to be open where it's like which guys' wheels start to fall off. Because that's going to happen. Like one or two of these guys in 2 or 3 years, their wheels are going to fall off.
As much as this is what it's going to look like in the next couple of years, Brian, you're not like overly there's a potential to have a bunch of money open up, and you can explore some fairly interesting options, I would imagine, if that's going to be the case. You know,
if
we're talking about
Marner
Jonathan
and Tavares and their money,
both of them, who knows? There just could be a situation where you might have to explore, or you have the opportunity to explore some pretty interesting things. What those are, I have no idea right now.
And sorry to interrupt. Oh, you're right. The only other thing too, it's 5 years, but it's not $8 million a year. It's got a 4 in it. That's a reasonable number.
Yeah.
You can make, again, is Chris Tanev going to play the life of his contract out? He might not. He might. He's a Warrior, but he might not. I think right now what Brad Treliving has done is found the numbers that he wants, and he'll deal with the term later. You kick the can down the road, and they have the ability. They're very creative. They can, players can go away, all of that type of stuff. But to me, it's a. When I saw the deal, I liked the number. I thought the number is very reasonable for that player.
I think you can look at it both ways, Noodles. I agree that it's not 8, but it's also not 1.5 or 2. I mean, it's a decent amount of. He's got to supply the value. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like once you get in, like the Liljegren scenario is an issue for this team. He's getting paid $3 million. The guy doesn't play. Like they played Myers on Saturday night over Timothy Liljegren.
Yeah, when they go down that depth chart, you're screwed.
You're number 9. Like you're number 9 on the depth chart if that's what's happening. Like when Hakanpää can play, you're behind him. So like Liljegren, I have no idea why they gave him that deal. I have no explanation for it. What was the purpose? He doesn't play.
No idea either.
Like he doesn't play, and he's not going to play. Like, unless this is an unfortunate set of circumstances, it's no one's fault scenario where Treliving sees him as a guy that should be playing, but Berube doesn't, and the coach wins. That's conceivable. I mean, that could be the case. I have no idea why they went with that, especially knowing, and I'm sure they knew at that time, they're probably keeping McCabe. So if you knew you were keeping 4 guys at a decent price, why are you paying a guy $3 million to be in a suit? That I can't quite understand. But they're going to have to rectify that issue, and they're going to have to move off him. But I would assume if someone was dying to take him on, he would have been gone by now. So what are you doing with Liljegren?
Well, I agree. I think it's tough to have $3 million sitting in the stands but I would argue there is some value there. I just don't know what would be the asking price. He's a first round.
Nothing.
Well, I understand.
Jamie, the value in the number alone is below zero.
It's enough. You have to take
people are
going to
be like, we need a body.
Like
people talking about, Arizona needs a body back there. As soon as they see the number attached, and by the way, that's the case with every player nowadays, unless you've got some kind of superstar. It's okay, the player right-handed. What's the number? And they look at the number and they almost pass out and they hang up the phone.
He's got 2 years. He's got this year next. And like it just, you can't, how are you going to play your cards like, we really like him, we're not giving him up? They're like, you're not playing him. You played Philip Myers on Saturday
That's what
night.
they do. They look at Liljegren and they're like, okay, $775, right? And they go, no, 3.8. And they say, glory be to God, we're not doing that.
$3 million, we're not doing it. And I don't know.
With this Jameson Winston or whatever, he said it before the game and after. Did he not?
He's going to say that 100,000 times the rest of the year.
Dude, he's not even a player. He's a priest.
Well, he's a winner in Cleveland.
Yeah, they won.
Dude, they love that guy. They'll build a statue of that guy just to not watch
Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson.
Anyone not named Watson wins in Cleveland. Like if Joe Flacco wins, Jameis Winston wins. If your name is anything but Deshaun Watson, you win as the quarterback of the Browns. Like, they beat the Ravens.
Get some of this guy's interviews. Like, get Amanda talking to this cat because I want to hear it. It's so amazing.
It is incredible. He is one of a kind, Winston, man. He's been doing that since he was in college. He had some weird. Remember, he had that rally where he was saying some wild stuff. I think he got suspended by the team because he threw out. Yeah, I can't remember the specifics. But it was like a school rally or whatever, hey, homecoming or something, and he got on the mic, and everyone was like, okay, well, all right, hey.
He got pulled?
I think he got pulled, and then I'm pretty sure he got suspended. Look that up, Doogie. And then he stole the crab legs.
He went Tommy Boy?
Yeah, he went Tommy Boy, and then he stole, allegedly crab legs or something like that from, a Publix down there. That got him in some trouble. Still went first overall. And threw 30 touchdowns and I think 30 interceptions.
Just like the old saying, as soon as somebody says, I swear to God, it means they're lying.
Well, that's it. Exactly. Generally speaking, that is a pretty good tell. Speaking of statues, did you see Dwayne Wade's statue being revealed in Miami?
It's Ronaldo.
Worse.
It's worse than Ronaldo, I think. I think it's the worst statue ever created by anybody.
He threw out the classic line. He was like, look at that. Who's that guy? And I was like, that's not you.
He was mortified. Like D-Wade. Look at that.
Dude.
What is that picture, man? D-Wade got it bad down in Miami, man. They cut deep.
But the Ronaldo's one is still worse than that.
This is
guy's face is on sideways.
Ronaldo's is pretty bad. You're right.
What I don't understand is, and they might have done this because it's such a high-profile dude, you have to have an unveiling behind the scenes and say, do you agree 100% that this is your likeness? And we're going to throw this out there as a statue. And the guy typically has to nod his head and say, let's rock it. I love it. So put it on D. Wade, man, because he would have to look at that and say, don't shake your head, Hayes, because that would have to happen.
It's a sculpture, though.
Yes,
it's already
but they
been
would have
created.
had to bring, right when the guy was whittling his face, he would have had to bring him in and say, do you like the face? And he would have had to say, yeah, it's good.
I guess you're right that he maybe could have had fun. I think it's a dicey scenario because
look at this.
That's
this guy's
awful.
cross-eyed.
That's Ronaldo, and that's terrible. But at least
that guy's life was ruined, though. There's a documentary about that guy who carved that. His life was ruined because people were.
He was the Steve Bartman of sculptors, and he got Bartmaned, and people are like, dude, we can't ever have that because Ronaldo is cherished, and so is D. Wade in Miami. Yeah. But at least Ronaldo, though, Noodles, is smiling. It's awful, but he's smiling. Yeah. What is Dwayne Wade doing? And some of the stuff online, they superimpose that face into the famous picture where he's got his hands up and LeBron is dunking behind him. That one was online.
There's been a few.
There's been some
creative
good
ones.
The trainer in Rocky where the guy's like throwing the towel where he's screaming. There's the one where his face is superimposed into that famous dunk by LeBron.
Dude, that face, it looks like a 75-year-old man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. It looks like he has a gray beard.
Yeah.
Like he has a gray beard. And Joe from the Bridge, post the pic if you can of Apollo Creed's trainer when he's screaming, throwing it down. That's what he looks like. Get out of there. That's kind of what Dwayne Wade statue looks like. That's D Wade. That's the sculpture down.
Dude, it is.
That's the statue down in Miami.
So who is being hired to do this?
I don't know, man.
That's the problem. Is there a picture? Like, I would love for this person to be interviewed and say, I worked off of this picture. Here's the picture I was given. This is exactly because he might have been given the wrong picture. That's the way I see it.
That would be a reasonable explanation. Probably the only one that I can make sense of. Because
right.
why is he screaming? Why is he yelling? Like, again, the Ronaldo one is wild, but he's smiling and he looks still. It looks like he's sitting there and they're sculpting his face or what have you. Dwayne Wade, it was like someone sent him a picture of a moment in time where the guy's yelling towards the rafters. Look at all these pictures coming in, man. That's not Dwayne Wade.
No,
like someone just sent us one. It looks like Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin. That is true. It looks a little bit like Mr. Freeze.
It's so weird.
It's ugly.
And it doesn't look like him. But I guarantee you, they commissioned somebody who's not a sports fan and probably said, here, do this statue. And the guy found a picture online and did it. Like,
oh, man, this is
it's got to be Big
stuff.
Bank,
This
though.
is a legend of the organization.
Got to be Big Bank.
You got to bring this guy in.
Look at him.
Look at him.
He's
there are
mortified.
people that are laughing beside him, like laughing.
That's his son, I think. That's like, dude, this is awful.
Dude, I would bet money that after this backlash, they're going to have this thing redone.
100%
they will chop the head off this thing and have a new head put on that thing within 3 weeks.
100%.
He will go there at 4:00 in the morning with a chainsaw and cut it off himself.
Right. Like that Simpsons episode where
he's going to drive his motorcycle up the top of the stairs like Rocky Balboa and stare at it and throw his helmet at it.
That's right.
It's hideous.
You can't have it.
It'll be changed in less than a month.
You cannot have that. You can't have that. That's going to bother people. It's going to scare children. You can't have that statue outside of that stadium.
Scare children.
All right, Luke Wilson in studio in 15 minutes. His take on what we saw over the weekend. What's up with the New York Jets? Where do they go from there? What does he make of Dak and the Cowboys? Anthony Richardson, first time maybe in history a quarterback said, I need a breather. I got to come out for a snap. No one's ever seen it before. He did that yesterday, and the Colts end up losing. So that more still to come. And we got a Monday nighter tonight. Steelers at home against the Giants. Owen Wilson on the clock with that pick. So that's coming up. There's a bunch of games in the NHL, including Leafs Jets tonight. Stamkos and the Preds back in Tampa. We got World Series Game 3. We got the Nuggets in town playing the Raptors. All hell's breaking loose, and we're all over it all afternoon. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Luke Wilson will be in here in about 10 minutes. His take on the Monday Nighter, what he saw yesterday was a wild day in the NFL.
Wild.
Crazy, crazy day in the NFL.
How did Mike McCarthy, you got a bye week and you don't fire that guy? Not that I don't know if that would make a difference, but what a mess, man. Just disgusting.
That's it. Dallas is coming off an awful loss the week before the bye. Then they go on a bye and they come out, play like that last night. And they're suffering from injuries. There's no doubt about that, especially defensively.
If you can't beat San Fran last night, you will never, ever, ever beat them in your life.
I'm with you because I wasn't overly impressed with the Niners either. I thought Purdy struggled a lot in the first half, and it was on a platter for you. You just had to go out and get it. And at some point, you need a $60 million quarterback to say, I'm winning this ball game. Yeah. That's another part of it is Dak's got to go out there.
Bozo picks himself.
He did, man. That's the crazy thing about yesterday is Dak, he had that interception to start the second half, inexcusable. And he didn't play well. And that really is what sticks out from yesterday. Like Aaron Rodgers, we harp on this guy. We talk about him. He looks like he can't make the throws anymore to me.
No.
He's trying to do the off the back foot, throwing dimes, and he's off by 10 yards on some of these throws. He's completely out of sync.
Dude,
I don't know if
he's 40
it's
years
heads
old
in
and
it.
he blew his Achilles out and missed the whole season.
Exactly.
Father Time, you always say, is undefeated, and it's just caught up to him. He's not Aaron Rodgers, and it's the worst thing for guys like that. He's compared to himself. He's not being compared to Joe Flacco or somebody like that. He's being compared to Aaron Rodgers, one of the best to ever do it. He doesn't have it anymore.
No, he doesn't, and he's got no help because that team's so dysfunctional and they're a mess.
And I'm worried that is this going to affect his legacy? The way if he ends up going out this way, and they run him out of New York, and it's just ugly, and people just lining up to take shots. That's what you remember of stars.
Yes.
Depends how long he does it.
Right.
If he sticks around for one more year and does it again and makes it really grueling and painful, then it might affect his legacy. But 1 year, if he's just one and done, and he's just like, see you later, I'm not dealing with this garbage. You never. I think that's enough time to escape.
I think it's a reasonable question, though, that it's one of the more, I don't know if depressing is the right term, but it's
sad.
One of the, more emotionally negative kind of endings to someone's career who was a great player, and he was great in Green Bay, and that's all he knew. And the Packers are so easy to like because of Lambeau and all that. I know I'm not speaking for Bears fans and Lions fans and Viking fans, but
at least Favre caused a buzz when he moved
absolutely.
Around.
When
Minnesota.
He took Minnesota to the championship game.
Yeah.
Like he was in the NFC championship game, and he went out throwing a pick. But okay, you got him there. Like this, Jets fans finally believed, and their instincts tell them not to do that. There's certain teams in pro sports, one of them happens to live here in this city, where your instincts say, don't do it to yourself again. Like, don't believe. Don't do it because they'll burn you. And here's an example. They played 8 games, and Jets fans are like, I knew they were going to do this. But they're 2-6. They have the same record as the Pats, and the Pats are horrible. They're tanking, and they're awful. Yeah. It's brutal. It's really brutal. All right, Luke, on that, more. Leafs Jets tonight. We'll continue to tee that up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.